But what I've learned is it's really about the people. Because if you borrow money and it's the wrong person, it's not worth it. I mean, it's just not, right? It's just not worth it. Yeah, I get lender calls every week. Every week, somebody's calling me. And I can tell right away if I want to do business with them because I'll ask them about how they underwrite. I'll know within 10 seconds if this is even worth a conversation with.
We are back one more time for another episode of Hard Hat the CEO. This is Chris G here. And today we're going to be talking about real estate. And you know I love real estate, and I've told you this many, many times before. But today I've got a guy all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. His name's Frank. And Frank Iglesias is, well, sure, he's a Hard Hat CEO fan, but he's also a Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki fan. And we're going to be bringing up stuff that Robert's taught us over the years. So please help me welcome Frank. Frank, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Frank?
Yeah, investor of 17 years. Like you said, it started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That is how it began. And, started simple, started with a buy, fix, and refinance to rent.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was called the BRRRR strategy, and we made it a nice little term. But back then, that's just what we did. Got into some wholesaling and flipping and new construction, some coaching. And so we've touched a lot of areas in the real estate world. And, we've seen I tell people I've seen the mountaintops, the summits. I've also seen the valley, and it's pretty dark down there. So, it's not always sunshine and roses. Sometimes it is, though, but sometimes you're going through the weeds. And so, I like to tell people I'm that investor that still active, but also likes coaching people and say, there's like everything else that you got to take the good with the bad.
Sure.
And you got to work through the downsides, but at the same time, we've had a lot of success on the upsides, and the journey's still going. We'll see how it goes.
What's your favorite real estate to invest in? Homes, apartments, commercial?
All
the above.
I don't know that I have a favorite because to me, a phrase I use often is it's all four walls and a roof.
Okay.
Without a structure. So I don't know that I have a favorite as much as I like deals that will produce income quickly. I think what I learned in construction is I have to be choosy because sometimes when you get into heavy construction, it might be a while before you get paid, if you get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned I need to be more selective with those. And construction is no joke. I mean, it's heavy hitting. There's a lot of work, a lot of parts, a lot of moving pieces, things that could go wrong, things that you have no control over that can have an impact. And so I've learned that I really like the projects that can pay you quickly. And then supplement it with the slower moving things.
I'm going to jump to my next question because I had to hear it later, but what's your definition of quickly?
What's that?
What's your definition of quickly?
So
wholesaling can be a lot quicker than, say, the fixing.
Yeah, that's true, right? It's all relative, right? Like so many things in real estate, the answer is it just depends.
Yeah.
So to me, quickly, I've always enjoyed wholesaling. I haven't done it a lot in years. I'd like to do more of it. And I found that to be a lot of fun because you get in, you help someone, you get out, you get compensated, someone gets helped. So there's a lot of satisfaction that comes from that. We like buy and hold because, of course, you get a paycheck every month. And sometimes it's easy to take that for granted. And over the years, I've learned to appreciate not taking that for granted. You're providing a service and someone's providing you a check on a monthly basis, whether it's residential or commercials, right? Neither here nor there. Cash flow is powerful, right? Going back to the Kiyosaki thing, that was when I first talked about it. I like the small fix and, to me, a small cosmetic fix and flip is nice because you can get in and out of them quickly. So those would be the things I would call fast stuff that can make money under 3 months for sure.
Sure. Well, you're going to be able to answer this question. I don't know how easy it'll be, but you've done fix and flips, you've done new construction, you've done the even new construction. You got to find the deals, and you found it with even wholesaling. You really got to find the deals. If anybody doesn't understand what that is, you find wholesales when you find a property below the market value, below the value that it would cost to even fix it up. Get a little built in for yourself, then turn it around quickly to make a smaller profit than you would if you kept it for yourself. But it's quick money. So Robert Kiyosaki talks about the you make your money in the purchase, not in the sell, meaning you buy it right. How do you find those deals, or how do you look for them today compared to when you started out, I guess?
The irony is we're actually going back to what worked when it started out. That's the irony of it all.
Direct mail or what? Go around looking?
Well, when I think about marketing techniques, they all pretty much still work. It's just to what degree. And so what I've learned is there's a factor in marketing that you don't hear about a lot. And so I'll preface it by saying, does direct mail work? Yes. Is the response rate less than it was before? Yes. But does it still work? Yes. If you structure it strategically, you'll still get deals from it. Can you do PPC? Yes. You better have a budget because you're going to need one. Now you have the pay per lead. Does that work? Sure, as long as there's not. But what happens with PPL is someone puts out a good one. Now everybody's paying top dollar.
Yeah.
The PPL company makes out pretty good, I would imagine. But, only one person's going to get that lead. Does cold calling work? Yes. Does texting work? Yes. You got to be real careful, right? Because you got to play within the rules.
Yep.
Don't just be reckless out there. And we could go on and on through the marketing channels, and they're all going to work if we commit, go all in, and understand the nuances of the channel. But what I found is different. Why I say I'm going back in a way to where we started is back when I started. This was 2008, 2009. And back then you would walk into, and this, I remember, I'll never forget it. It was the first time I went to a Kiyosaki thing that I learned of a hard money lender at the very first 2-hour, whatever it was, seminar. Like, hard money lender, they would do that. What is that? Right? Like, it was this radical concept, never heard of it. Back in those days, you would buy a property and you had to be all in for 65%. So purchase, rehab, financing, holding, everything. We had to be in for 65%. It was 5 points. It was 15% interest, but it wasn't a big deal because, well, the prices were cheap, right? Houses were cheap. So 5 points sounds like a lot, but on a $50,000 house, it's $2,500. That's less than a point on a lot of houses today. And so when we did this, what we learned is when we were all in for 65%, something happened, and it's real simple. The deal worked. What I started thinking about is as time passed on, our idea of a good deal has been watered down. You started hearing people talk about, well, now it's 70% ARV. Now it's 75%. Then you hear people talking about 80%. Then you talk about people talking about 80% before rehab, which will still work on the West Coast if you're in the Bay Area, but not many other places.
It wouldn't work here for sure.
Yeah, only in a few spots can you pull that off. And so I started realizing that as wholesalers came in over the years, as realtors came in, and we both know, 17 years later, a lot of people that started when I started, the vast majority are long gone. Okay, a lot of people are not, most people don't stay in this real estate game that long because it's a grind, it's challenging. And I realized we've been watering down what a good deal is. And so we said, you know what? Now we're in a market that's declining. I'm in Atlanta. Overall, it's flat or declining. There might be a pocket or two that's going up, but by and large, it's a declining or flat market. We invest in Florida. It's a declining market in a lot of places down, right? So how do you buy a property in a declining market? You got to be even more conservative. But what I learned is if I'm going to take on a bigger deal or really any deal, I'm going back to those days of the 65%. Maybe if it's great, I'll do 70, but I'm just staying at lower. Does it mean I do less deals? Absolutely. Am I okay with that? All day, twice on Sunday.
It's safer. Yeah.
Because you've seen it, right? I've seen what happens when you take those risks. And so sometimes people are like, well, Frank doesn't buy any properties. I literally would tell wholesalers, I'm not your buyer. And of course, they want to sell it to you. God bless them. That's great. And I'm
Sure.
like, I said, there's probably 100 people out there that'll pay more than me. I'm just being real with you. Because I know after building houses and doing, pop the tops, additions, fire damage, historic homes, custom, once you've done all that, you can look at anything and go, okay, this is what's really going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still need that contingency.
Because you're going to forget something, or something's going to
Yeah.
happen when you get in there.
I can always tell like a lender who's new, because they'll be like, yeah, we have a 5 to 10% contingency. I'm like, you haven't lent money very long, have you? So, right, no offense, not trying to offend, but 20% bare minimum. And if it's a bigger project, probably 30, 40. You just, once you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah.
You've seen it. And so I've learned, you know what, let's go back to what I know worked. Be all in for a certain percentage. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's okay to walk away. We're not running out of houses tomorrow or the day after. I've been looking at a lot of multifamily lately, and it's really not much different. If the cash flow doesn't work, what do we know about holding property? There's going to be expenses.
For my listeners who don't understand what we're talking about, what does all in at 65% mean?
So if a property is worth, we'll just use a simple number like 500,000, nice even number. I'm going to take that 500, I'm going to multiply it by 65%, which is.
But it's 500,000 fixed up when it's all said and done. Yeah.
500,000 ready for the market. And nowadays, the conservative side of the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to multiply it, and I want to be able to buy the property, fix it, pay for the taxes, all the holding costs, any financing costs, any interest costs, everything, and be at 65% of what that property is going to sell for. And, back when I started, that was normal. Today, people think it's radical. It's very interesting.
You can't find those. I've heard that. It's like, well, they're not right on the street. If it was easy, everybody would do it, but they're out there. You just got to look for them.
Yeah. Our philosophy is good deals are rarely found. They're created. I agree, Cole. The odds of me waking up and finding a deal that fits in that box, it's a unicorn. It'll show up every once in a blue moon. But if I find an opportunity and we can negotiate that, and this goes to an idea that I've seen a lot, and I've shared this many times, is for somewhere along the way, when I started this business, we would go back and forth a lot if there was negotiation, which is traditionally what negotiation is. There's a good bit of back and forth.
Sure.
With technology, we seem to have adapted to this idea where if we have to go back and forth more than 1 or 2 times, we're working too hard. I see this a lot with realtors. We sold a property last year, and I told my realtor, I was like, we're going to go back and forth on this. You're going to work hard on this one. And sure enough, I think the back and forth went back like for 2 or 3 days, like 8 or 9 conversations before we finally locked it up with the same agent. We're like going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And she came to me and she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, you're killing me. I was like, no, that's actually normal. That's real negotiation.
Have they been in there? Have they been in it very long? Real estate?
They have, but again, younger person. I just think, a lot of people think it's like, and now, Chat GPT, you put anything in, we got it. So it's like for some reason, we think negotiation should be as quick as a Google search. And that's not reality. I always think back to when I was in Africa, 15 years ago, I was in Africa, and we went to a market, in the city. It was by the beach. It was a beachside town. And they had a picture, nice little frame picture with the African landscape and all this beautiful picture. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get it on the plane, but I really liked it. So it'd be nice to figure it out. We ended up buying it too. But here was the crazy thing. The guy wanted, and I don't remember the exact number. It had to have been under $50. It wasn't like expensive.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. I'll give you whatever I said. I don't remember. Maybe it was maybe half. I don't know. That guy would not let me go. Like we went back and forth for probably 10, 15 minutes over this picture. And what I realized, and I think about, at the time it was like, that seems a little crazy, but now when you add 15 years of real estate experience, I look back and go, that's it. That's real negotiation. He's being a sales guy. He's being a negotiator. He's trying to figure out what my button is to say yes. And he's willing to work at it. And he worked. He earned his whatever I paid. He earned it. And you know what? That painting is still hanging up in my house today. I looked at that picture. I'm like, it's beautiful, but it reminds me of that's negotiation. And I think we've lost that in a lot of real estate investing today. We're addicted to this. It's got to happen quick. If I make one low offer, oh, Frank, you are way too low. Just, you can't be serious. I get that all the time. And I'm like, sure where's the let's talk about this for a little while? Give me some angles. It's like it's lost. People don't realize it. So I like the idea of marketing again and just getting back to I think the old school works well. And now we can create deals that actually work.
So when it comes to negotiations, you've got to have a number in your head that you're willing to, this is your max number. And you obviously don't share that, but you got to know what the property is worth as well to get to that number. How do you value property these days?
It's very market driven. So another thing I've learned that I didn't appreciate nearly enough for years was people say real estate is local. I think we undervalue that statement. It's really, really local. And in a lot of areas, it can be to the block local. And so I've learned that I really got to know and understand the market well. Right now, we're looking at a property in another state. It's a lakefront property. And it's a simple cosmetic fix and flip. It's very straightforward. But all the comparables on the waterfront are on the south side of the lake. This one's on the north side. Well, there's no other comparables on the north side, but it is the same lake. So one local realtor says, well, it's all lakefront and that's just how we do it. Fair. It's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
But then the next realtor says, if it's south of the bridge, that's different from north of the bridge. This was literally a conversation I had yesterday. She's like, if you go north of the bridge, there's some pockets that are newer houses and that one's good. But where you are, it's like, she was like, I don't know that I would go there. I'd be more conservative.
You don't want the best house on the block.
Which is exactly what it would be. And but it would be waterfronts, got a boathouse, a little thing for a jet ski. I mean, it's a cool property.
Sure.
But I'm not buying it to be cool. It's not for me. So
right.
So now we're going to have a call with another realtor who's local to that area to sort it out, and we'll see where it lands. I don't know if at first I was like, this looks like a great deal. That's my lucky day. And then you dive in and you're like, well, I don't want to talk myself out of it, but I also don't want to talk myself in it.
Right.
Either.
Now, with the advantages that we didn't have back when we started, I started in 2001, and you had to go look, and you didn't want to go very far. When I started out, for sure, I didn't want to go out of state. But now you can go on Google and do a street view, right? You can look at the neighborhood.
Yeah.
A lot easier than before. I'm assuming you've seen the neighbors from the house that you're looking at?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a golf course community, so it's nice. Yeah, it's a nice little area. But one thing one realtor said, she's like, well, a number of people were selling their houses because the community had some problems with their water. That's kind of important.
Very well, love that.
Now the problem's been resolved, but then in my mind, I'm like, all right, is there a stigma there of, oh, you know what, we're not going to buy there because that was the water neighborhood.
Mm.
Like, is that still lingering there? I don't know. That's hyper local knowledge that I can't get looking. One of the things I'm doing today that I got away from, and I'm doing it again a lot more in recent years, is I'm calling up realtors and I'm like, I want to talk to the local expert, not the realtor that will drive all around because that's how they do it. Like that little corner of the world is their little happy place.
Mm-hmm.
And they know every block, they know what anybody wants, and that is their little world. Because that's that intelligence that I'm not going to get online. I could have all the tools on the planet, I'm not going to get that.
So in this particular example, did you lower your all-in because of the other factors that you're finding out?
Well, we might,
Yeah.
because that number, we might be off by as much as 100,000, right? Because they're like, well, this thing could be worth 1.1, and I was like at 1 million, and I'm like, we might be around 850 actually. Right. So that changes the scope of the deal. I mean, it's lakefront property. So I know it's desirable regardless. It's lakefront.
Right.
So it has that. But even lakefront, you can't just say, well, I'm going to get this because it's on the water. Because there's other lakefront properties for sale, and the location on the lake matters, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's its own animal. So, I've just learned that with property, hyper local knowledge is extremely valuable. You mentioned the tools online. I love Google Earth because you can see the contours. Like Atlanta's a hilly city, for example.
Yeah.
Someone could send a deal. They send a picture. It looks good. I go on Google Earth, or maybe I look at a GIS map, and you see a lot of little lines really close together, and the thing's on a cliff, and you're like, you know what? Maybe not.
So besides the amount of money you're going to pay for a deal, how do you know it is a good deal or a good investment? Is that the only way?
We look at time. Time
Okay.
matters. Time matters. And it depends on the length of the deal. So when we look at construction now, we made the mistake. I'll word it this way: we made the mistake of, when we got into really big projects and new construction, of treating it the same way we treated small fix and flips, or even medium fix and flips.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a grave mistake. That was a grave mistake, because when you get into these projects that are 6 months of work or more,
right?
You go into the deal with your comps. Well, I looked at my comps for the last 6 months. That information's worthless by the time you're done. So unless the market is skyrocketing upward, which it was for a period of time,
right?
But unless that's happening, that data is useless. And so we had to learn, trend analysis. Which way is the general market trending? Where's this block trending? What's going on in that community? And people will say, well, XYZ is coming to this area. So, it's amazing. Anytime something's coming to an area, property value is going up. Except that's not always true. Like, it's easy to say that, right? Oh, this is coming, that's coming. Yeah. So values have to go up. No, that is not always true. And we've seen that in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
With the film industry coming here, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's going to explode. No, there are places where there are studios in Atlanta that have not exploded. In fact, some of them have gone down. So, no, that is not how that, so that's not always true. So we look at the trends if it's going to be a longer project, in any project, but in particular the longer ones, because what I want to know is not what it's worth today, what it'll be worth when I'm done. And that can be a very different number from what it is using the comps of the last 6 months, which is a standard way of thinking, right?
So you're not only doing the trending, you're doing projections too. Here's what's happening, and based on this, we think this is what it's going to be at the end of the time.
That's correct. And then I employ another thing I learned from one of my coaches years back. He said, for any deal, any venture, what's my best case? Which is probably not going to happen. It might, but more often than not, it won't. What's the worst case? What's the most likely? And what we learned from that is, in a declining or flat market, we're going to underwrite off the worst case. And if it doesn't fit in the worst case, we lower the price.
Leave it alone, yeah.
Another thing I do is when I'll speak with realtors, I'll say, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, how much do you think you could sell this for? And they'll give me a number. Let's say 500,000. Use that example again. I'll say, okay, great. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, let me ask you, what do you think you could sell it for in a high interest rate economy that could be flat or declining, where I don't have to ask you to cut your commissions and you sell it in 7 days? That's a totally different number.
I'm sure it is.
And it's usually the smallest reduction I've gotten so far is 50,000. Usually it's
the smallest.
The smallest, yeah. So that 500 just went to 450 and probably less. And then I tell the realtor, that's okay, I'm going to make my offer based off that number, because in this market, the last thing I want to do is be holding a property in a declining market.
Heck no.
Been there, done that. No, let's not do that again.
So you actually answered my next question, how you kind of judge the trending. So you're asking information from the agents. Do you use any other software or anything like that, or research?
Oh yeah. We'll look at our own research. So we'll have an idea going into the conversation with the realtor. We'll have it. So for example, today's realtor sent me a property. We did the research. It's owned by a hedge fund. It's a good rental area. I'm like, why is a hedge fund selling a property in a good rental area? I'd like to know the answer to that.
Right.
Because that seems odd to me that they would sell it. So are they in trouble and they need to liquidate to get liquidity back? Or are they just trying to upgrade their investment? Or maybe they've had challenges because, oh, by the way, there are bars on the door. So maybe it's just a little too dicey for them, which maybe it's going to be too dicey for me then.
That's right.
Right. So it's these, I'll do the research and then I want to talk to the local expert and say, tell me now, tell me what's really going on the streets there.
Now you've said we a couple of times. Do you have a partner or do you have a team?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do you also have a team?
We're small. Yeah, we're a smaller team now. We used to be bigger back when we did a lot of new construction, but smaller team now, but we're starting to grow again. And so we're having fun.
No, I love it's a lot of fun negotiating back and forth and find those properties. Where do you find the money for investing in real estate these days? And maybe you're using your own, but back in the day when you started out, you said hard money earlier.
Hard money is always available. I've learned that with hard money, you've got to vet. I've learned, you got to vet lenders as much as they vet you. It's very much a bilateral thing. Just someone has capital to lend doesn't mean it's a good fit. Private capital, of course, always works. We like creative financing though, right? Let's just make this easier for everybody. And what I've learned is all the methods work. It's just a matter of vetting which capital method works best for the deal. And when we do that, it's interesting. For years, people talked about how to borrow private money, how to borrow hard money. But what I've learned is it's really about the people. Because if you borrow money and it's the wrong person, it's not worth it. I mean, it's just not, right? It's just not worth it. I get lender calls every week. Every week, somebody's calling me. And I can tell right away if I want to do business with them because I'll ask them about how they underwrite. I'll know within 10 seconds if this is even worth a conversation worth having. One thing, and I like to share this now, one of my lender friends said something that I thought was very profound. huge. And I thought this was huge. And he told me, this is a hard money lender telling me this. He said, Frank, just because a deal is financeable does not mean it's good. As lenders, our job is to lend on financeable deals. That's how they make their money. It doesn't mean it's a good deal for the investor. And that was eye-opening. When I heard that a few years ago, I was like, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? And when a lender, his job is to finance a deal. Because once it closes, they get paid, they're going to get their, right, they're going to get what they're going to get. It doesn't mean it's good. So what is an example of that?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning. We were talking about all in. So let's say you're going to be all in for, let's just say 70%, because that's common.
Right.
Using the $500,000 example. It's 500,000, all in is 350. Well, I can buy it, I can fix it for 350, but I can't include financing, I can't include, and let's say that's 50 grand, just to make up a number.
Yep.
So okay, so the borrower now has to put up another 50 grand. Well, now the all in is really not 70%.
Yeah.
Because now we're at 400, we're at 80%. Right? The numbers changed.
Mm-hmm.
But the lender will do that deal because they're in for
they're fine. Yeah.
You, however, are at 400. And so now, and it's easy to sit there and go, well, Frank, there's still 100,000. Well, let's think about it. 500,000. It's a buyer's market. So I'm going to take 10% off because I got to pay 2 realtors. I'm probably going to have to pay some closing costs, and the good old home inspector is going to tell me to do something. We don't know if it's going to cost $100 or $5,000, but sure enough,
he's going to find something. They're doing their job.
$300 inspection. No offense, inspectors. God bless you, but they got to get their money's worth here. Right? Nobody wants an inspection report that says the house is perfect. Right? And so, I'm not blaming inspectors, maybe a little, but now I'm at 450, and I'm all in for 400. What if I got to negotiate down? What if that project took 9 months? What if it took 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the diminishing return is going to happen really quickly. Now let's take that exact same deal and move it down to a $300,000 price point, which is very common.
Yes.
You can end up with a deal with a $5,000 spread total after 6 months in a snap of a finger. Because the lender was good and the deal was financeable, but you were above that all-in threshold for them, effectively creating your own all-in, which put you in the danger zone.
I hear you.
And this is how people lose money on deals. One of the ways, but a very common one.
So you offer coaching, is that right?
I do.
What's the best way for people who are interested in learning more about real estate investing to get hold of you?
Easiest way to find me, Frank Iglesias on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Facebook. That'll be the easiest way. You can also go to my website, frankiglesias.com. You can email us, info@workingwithhouses.com. You can call us. Good old-fashioned phone.
Pick up the phone? Okay.
Pick up the phone, we answer it, and if you leave a voicemail, we check it. I know that's a little weird today, but but we do. I've been amazed. I say it tongue in cheek. It is interesting to me how many people do not use voicemail anymore. It's very interesting. You leave them a voicemail, they'll never hear it, and they may or may not even text you back. It's really interesting. So, different world.
Well, we'll make sure your information's in the show notes below, Frank, and they can contact with you. And I do love to talk about real estate, and Frank's the man to go to, it sounds like. And before we go, I do want to ask one more question. I remember reading the books from Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about, now that's back a long time ago, about, staying local so you don't have to do that. Now you're talking about and you've got a lot of years in your belt, looking at properties in other states. Is that the best way to expand? I'm assuming you've got a lot of knowledge. Is it hard to do one out of state compared to locally?
That's a great question. It depends.
Okay.
Right, going back to that, it
Yeah,
depends.
it depends on. Yeah.
Some properties you can go out of state. It's very straightforward. The market's very straightforward. The clientele's straightforward, and it'll flow easily. Some properties, and I'll give you an example. Literally, I got just this afternoon. I had a person send me a deal in an area called White Hills, I believe, Arizona. When I put it in Google, I thought it was a mistake at first because all I saw was a picture of the desert and what looked like a mountaintop. And I was like, wait a minute, is this right?
What?
Click on Google Street View and all you see is cactus and wait a second, is this right? It actually was. If you zoom in, what you saw was there was a number of little houses spread out, 2-acre lots in the middle of the desert in this remote little town, hour from Henderson, Nevada, headed toward Vegas, an
Right.
hour from Kingman. I'm like, you are near nothing. And it's small because the grocery store, the closest one, Walmart's an hour away. So
Wow.
there's a gas station, and when you click at the main road that goes between Henderson and Kingman, there's a little gas station, and when you click on it, you look at the pictures, you could see the grocery aisle in the gas station. And I'm like, there you go. That's where they get
That's
their
it.
food. Because there's nothing else for an hour in either direction. So I wouldn't recommend doing that deal unless you're incredibly experienced. And even then, like I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what I would do with this. Or if I would want to, I have to go call a realtor. Again, go back to a realtor. I can't even get good data online. I found one comparable. I'm going to call the Kingman realtor and just, you tell me what's going on. So, that's not a good example of remote rehabbing or remote anything. But I bring that up because I'll get deals like that regularly where people just say, they'll just send you anything. And you're just like, just because something's for sale doesn't mean it's a good opportunity. We got to just dive in. And, when you get into someplace really remote like that, it's like, is this really done? And let's say the numbers work. If it was in a regular suburban market, because this is like the rural of the rural.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, how much is it going to cost me to get a general contractor who's going to have to drive an hour? And let's say he lives nearby. At least the materials are going to have to get there.
Absolutely.
From an hour, maybe they're coming from Vegas. That's an hour and a half. And I got to get all that stuff there. And then we all know what happens in construction stuff, breaks on delivery and shipping and the wrong thing or somebody
amount.
Wrong, right? Something. Oh, we're one beam short. Sorry, we got to stop. Right? There's so many things. Right? You add that kind of drive time. It's shot. So I tell people, if you're going to invest remotely, you got to really know the environment you're walking into. Not just the local market, but the overall environment. I was talking with a lady earlier, real quick, she was an expert at mountain properties. I've stayed on Airbnb on a mountain. I've seen that truck. I mean, I've watched them take 30 minutes to deliver material just as going up. Took them half hour to get up because it's a heavy load, tight roads, curvy. They don't want to fall off the cliff.
No.
I've sat there and watched it happen, and I'm like, and now they got to still come back down, but half an hour and then how do you get the material off the truck? There's like no room.
Or smaller turn lanes, how you turn around, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can have some complicated environments. So the last thing you want to do is do something remote where you're introducing complexity that you didn't think about because you thought it would be as easy as rehabbing a house, a mile down the street.
Good points. Well, Frank, thank you for today. And if you guys like what you hear, please give me a like or a subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Helps the algorithm and gets it to other people. This is Chris G, Hard Hat CEO, letting you go. God be with you till we meet again. Bye-bye.